Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the chief foreign commentator for The Eye, Michael Day, and the writer and broadcaster, Amy Nickell-Turner. Welcome both. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, reaction to the news that the Princess of Wales is undergoing cancer treatment leads most of the newspapers, starting with the Sunday Times, whose headline reads, "Kate wrote every word to reassure the nation." On the front of the Mail on Sunday, the message from the Princess of Wales this evening, thanking the public for their outpouring of love and well wishes. That's also on the front of the Daily Mirror. Their headline, "Thank you for your warmth and support. We are both so touched." And on the Sunday Express, "A nation touched by Kate's courage." The Daily Telegraph leading with an image of the Prince and Princess of Wales together. Their headline, "Prince's pride at courage of his wife." The Daily Star focusing on celebs grovelling over insults to the princess, asking, now are they sorry? And The Sun on Sunday reports that Kate had an emotional lunch with the king earlier this week. Well, a different story from The Observer, their report on deadly tactics used by UK-funded French police against migrants crossing the channel in small boats. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code that you see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Michael Day and Amy Nickell-Turner. Thank you both for being with us. And obviously, there's two main stories. There's a lot of coverage of the Moscow attack as well, and we will look at it. But I guess we start with what is on all the front pages and, of course, the pictures, the story about the Princess of Wales. Now, let's start with the Sunday Times. Kate wrote every word to reassure the nation. That every word, of course, of the video, that statement that she made on her social media channels. Amy, what do you think of the coverage and the story in general?
I think hearing Kate speak, first of all, was fantastic, because she's a bit of an enigma, isn't she? But she said it was incredibly important for her to speak this rather than write it. And she wants everyone to know that there was no input from any of her assistants, any of the staff at Buckingham Palace, and this came straight from her heart. She's just 42 years old and a mother of three, and I can't even begin to imagine the shock that the family felt. Every word of that statement, I mean, the words were subtle, but they certainly addressed every shred of controversy that we've heard over the past couple of months. And obviously, she's feeling incredibly vulnerable. I think William's feeling very protective of his wife. But yeah, it was just hearing her voice. But she felt it would be more compassionate that way, and sitting amongst the daffodils, which are the symbol of so many cancer charities, has really reassured everyone. But I think also no one was expecting what she said. There was 1,000,001 theories about what was going on with her, but not that one. I didn't hear even a mention of that word, that terrifying word. So while she's reassured the nation, it certainly was a massive surprise for everyone.
And I mean, you mentioned that terrifying word, of course, cancer. And Michael, something that so many people across the country will be dealing with in their own personal lives. And it really was impactful, the way that she delivered her statement.
Absolutely. I mean, regardless of what you think about the royal family, this is a human story. This is a young woman with children who's had this shock diagnosis. And I think the video performance, it was quite dignified, it was graceful. And of course it helped because she's been in the news for the wrong reasons with the altered photo fiasco more recently. This was a natural performance, and I think she's won plaudits for it. And as you say, cancer affects not just royal people, it affects so many people. Yeah. So, I mean, she's by being so open, I'm sure she's actually chimed with the things millions of other, or hundreds or thousands of people are going through as well.
Yeah. And if we look at the front page of the Mirror, I think we can pull it up now. "Thank you for your warmth and support. We are both so touched." This is the statement released just about half an hour ago. And again, showing a united front. And I suppose instead of mentioning them, they were never going to, but all the speculation that there's been very much a united front and thanking the people, they did show warmth and support.
I mean, they did after her statement on Friday, but I mean, there wasn't much warmth and support. I think that's fairly well acknowledged.
Maybe not on
by
social
now.
media. Maybe
on
she got a
social
lot
media.
of
But I think, people were rightly confused because of the lack of communication coming out of the palace. And I don't really think it was completely unjustified for people to have the confusion that they did. However, another story mentioned is she's met up with this little girl who survived cancer, an ordinary little girl. And I hope that now a completely unprecedented scenario where two members, arguably most important members of our royal family, the King and the most popular royal, now undergoing cancer treatment, shines a light on UK's cancer treatment, because we need to be striving for better. We were discussing
a lot of things to talk about. Our survival rates do lag behind other advanced nations. There are shortages of staff. Recently I spoke to someone who is having to remortgage because she can't get the drugs for her partner because of some of the Brexit EU barriers to drugs being imported. So there are a lot of things to talk about. And if this actually encourages that, all for the good, really.
But interestingly, since King Charles went public with his diagnosis, there's been a surge in cancer referrals for private treatment, and not in the NHS, people having to go outside the NHS, because currently we're lagging 10 to 15 years behind.
And if you just look at the front page of The Sun on Sunday, Kate had emotional lunch with the King, and of course, both of them now having been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, it's a really heavy blow to the royal family, isn't it? The King, with the Queen passing away, then the King, not so long after, the new King being diagnosed, and now another very, very senior royal family. And we've had other scandals. It's a royal family that is reeling a bit at the moment. That probably will induce a lot of sympathy for the royal family, but it's in quite a difficult situation. We've got to the stage where even Andrew is having to be rolled out to do some of the work. It's a difficult time for the royal family.
But it's also a incredibly newfound territory for the royal family to be being so open with their health status.
It looks more human, doesn't it?
If you take back to when the Queen's father died, nobody even knew what he died of until after.
Different times, because if we look at the front page of the Daily Star...
We still don't know.
We don't know what the Queen died.
No.
Entirely, do we?
But front page of the Daily Star is, now are they sorry? And they're really highlighting all the celebrities. There's just so many people that were wildly speculating as to why she had stepped back from public life, even though they had said that it was for health reasons. Interesting, and there's a picture of Blake Lively, and I think there were others that said worse, but it really does highlight how social media went crazy over this.
Comment quickly, repent at leisure. That is social media, isn't it?
But I don't blame... Buckingham Palace handled this quite badly until Friday, and we were given such little information that people were left to run wild. But I think the situation now is that people are using TikTok to get as many followers and many likes by whatever means.
We have to move on, but very quickly, do you think this will put an end to all speculation?
Well, I think it's only going to make it worse. In terms of this story?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen things today.
Really?
I think it's continuing.
No, we're a society of conspiracy theorists, unfortunately.
Increasingly so.
Yeah,
I think TikTok... But now there's going to be calls, of course, to rein in TikTok, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of political debate about how to limit these social media.
Because we all have the choice to ignore a lot of stuff on social media as well.
Switch it off, it's always a good idea.
Michael, Amy, we're going to have to leave it there for now. And coming up, we're going to have coverage from the Sunday newspapers of the terrorist attack in Moscow, including from the Sunday Telegraph. Russia was warned not to use Moscow attack to intensify the Ukraine war. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me now. Chief foreign commentator for the Eye, Michael Day, and writer and broadcaster, Amy Nickell-Turner. Thank you both so much for being with us. OK, let's take a look at one of the other main stories in the papers, and that is the attack on Moscow by ISIS-K, or has been claimed by ISIS. But we can see this on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Russia warned not to use Moscow attack to intensify the Ukraine war. Michael, in a way, even though ISIS-K has claimed responsibility, and now we have the US also saying that they think ISIS are solely responsible, we have heard strange speculation coming out of Moscow, kind of insinuating that Ukraine is linked in some way. First of all, tell us what the story is in the Telegraph and how you think it might develop.
Well, Britain is warning Putin not to use this as an excuse to intensify his war on Ukraine. I don't think that will make a lot of difference. I'm sure he will do. He's won the election. He's feeling confident.
88%.
This is an embarrassing blow for him if it's the attack, if it is an ISIS attack. So there's a very good chance he will use this to step up the aggression in Ukraine, send hundreds, perhaps 100 or 150,000 more untrained Russian fighters into Ukraine as cannon fodder in this dreadful war of his. That's a distinct possibility. Okay. But there is a lot of confusion about this. I mean, various rumours about what's really happened. I mean, as you say, the Americans, they've made it very, very clear that they think it's ISIS-K, this ISIS franchise connected to Afghanistan. But there's some other theories as well, because, of course, Russia in the past has used false flag attacks. I mean, Putin came to power on the back of some of these, probably, didn't he? When he was, there were some apartment blocks blown up in Moscow in 1999, 2000, which perhaps triggered the Second Chechen War, which he got the credit for, and it boosted his ratings. So inevitably there are rumours, but all things considered, this probably is an Islamist terror attack. And Putin...
they've claimed it, haven't they?
Well, they've claimed it, but they kind of claim everything. I mean, ISIS will probably claim starting the Punic Wars.
They have released a video on their social media channels, I think, in the past hour or so, and even the US says it's ISIS. But what's interesting as well is that the US say that they actually told Russia that there was an imminent threat. Now, Michael, I guess Putin doesn't really care that much about what is said in the West because he thinks we're all liars, but he would care about what they think back home. Do you think this might have any impact? The fact that the US did warn of this attack, but obviously wasn't heeded.
I think there's been a lot of criticism on social media in Russia. I mean, people have pointed out, not unreasonably, if you go outside a shop in the centre of Moscow and with a pro-democracy banner, you'll be rugby tackled by security people in about 10 seconds. Whereas this terrible attack at the concert on Friday night, I think there's a National Guard barracks not far, 2 miles away, and it took them an hour or more to get there. I mean, they could have walked there in that time.
Well,
really.
I mean, speaking of walking, let's look at the front page of the Sunday Times, because it's on there as well. Murderous stroll of Moscow terrorists. So the killers walked calmly through the lobby of the venue, quote, as if they were out for a stroll. I mean, Amy, what do you make of this? It's quite sort of shocking.
I think everybody reading the news was incredibly shocked. But I think immediately one of the first things was I saw Putin trying to link this to something going on in Kyiv and he has yet to say ISIS in any of his in his statements since. And indeed, the US warnings were ignored. They urged Moscow to not be having these types of events because the terror alert was so high. And I'm sure that this will now be used to galvanise the war effort. And it is timely because, as we've said, Putin's just had that, can I say wonky election?
You can say rigged election, it was
right?
nonsense.
And then the attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure. So there needed to be something to push the war effort, I think. And I think in Russia, this will be used in that way.
It does show how complicated the world has got, though, hasn't it? That ISIS, that obviously is an enemy of the West, and then, Russia and the West are having their issues, but actually attacking... I mean, it just shows that the sort of I don't know, two sides...
Right.
it's such a complex situation.
I think in the past, I mean, I think there's a history between Russia and ISIS. I think during the Syrian civil war, Russia, for all the awful things it did in Syria, it did take out a lot of ISIS militants. During that, so they have a history.
And there's still a retaliation for what happened in Chechnya.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's one other point I'd make. I mean, this also was a warning. I mean, we've forgotten about Islamist attacks, major ones, but we've had, of course, in Paris, in Manchester, they all seem to go for music halls, don't we? And given what's happening in the Middle East now, particularly in Gaza, I mean, I'm sure the authorities will have to be on red alert, won't they?
This is 133 people, isn't it, that had their lives taken away from them.
Horror.
And 100. OK. We have a minute. Let's try and do this very quickly. The Observer front page revealed the deadly tactics used to keep migrants from our shores. Amy, what's the story about?
So they've found footage of France essentially capsizing boats, slashing boats, letting people swim back to the shore in an effort to stop the boats getting across the channel. This type of thing apparently was Priti Patel went to Greece and felt inspired by the techniques they used there, which have led to like 500 odd people dying in the water. However, I think the French are under great pressure at the moment because they've been given so many hundreds of millions of pounds to try and stop the boats getting across the channel. So by the UK, an extra 500 million last year. But I think stories like this, we need to be careful to not just see a mass of people. Remember, these are pregnant women, these are children on these boats, and they're being pepper sprayed and capsized. And I think it's absolutely disgusting.
Michael, 20 seconds.
And against maritime law.
Yeah. I mean, I think also it's a huge political issue for the Tories. I mean, their stop the boats is their mantra. They've not stopped the boats. And they'll probably do anything to it. You know, I mean, the crossings are going to start rising in the late spring and summer, aren't
But they don't want to put any processing in France. So they
No.
could stop the boats.
Well, but they'd like to, but they're not. But I mean, this is going to go on, and it's not going to get. There'll be more crossings in the summer, and so we've not heard the last of this.